This is a brief demonstration of Aerial Metrics Carwash software. Aerial Metrics Carwash software is designed to address the problem where you are capturing a scene with an open roadway. This can happen in a few situations. Most commonly, it is when a private engineering firm is doing a reconstruction of an accident that occurred on a roadway that is busy but which they have no authority to close. However, it can also happen when law enforcement agencies are working on major roadways where they wish to keep several lanes of traffic open to allow vehicles to continue to pass through the scene whilst they're measuring it. What we find is that regardless of how much effort you make to avoid traffic, it is inevitable that you capture some of the vehicles as they pass through the scene. These are images that were captured from a fatal crash on I-290 outside Chicago in August. And although it was captured at a time of day when traffic was reasonably light for this particular section of roadway, you can see that almost every image taken captures at least one vehicle. Now in Pix4D Mapper, you have a few options for addressing this issue. First, you can potentially sort through all of your images looking for those few that have no vehicle intruding on the scene. This is very time consuming, and we find that in general it's quite difficult to find a subset of images that completely capture the scene, will allow the images to calibrate correctly, and don't include any vehicles. If you intend to do this, it makes for a much longer scene capture time. So we generally find it to be impractical. The second option you have is to use the annotation tool in Pix4D Mapper to carefully mark out each vehicle in the scene. In this particular scene, it would have taken probably an hour to go through and annotate all of the individual images, and that's for someone who's familiar with using the tool. The third option you have is to go in and use the orthomosaic editing tool and edit the orthomosaic after the fact. But this only cleans up the orthomosaic, tends to create artifacts in terms of color distortions, and again can be somewhat time consuming. So these are the reasons that we developed Aerial Metrics Carwash. It's a very simple tool. The user interface is designed only for pointing at a specific Pix4D project and for providing some visual feedback as to the tool's progress. We start by selecting the Pix4D project that we wish to work on. We do this by selecting a P4D file. You'll note that for the P4D file to be available, step 1 needs to have been completed. Once we select the P4D file, the software will read through it to identify all of the images that were included in the project. It will then begin to process each one of them in turn. It does so using machine learning algorithms that have been trained on images that we have captured over the past 7 years from scenes that we have worked on. As it processes each image, it creates an annotation file within the Pix4D Mapper folder structure that will then be used in steps 2 and steps 3 of Pix4D Mapper processing. You will note that the identification of vehicles in the scene is not always pixel perfect, but we have found from experience that it is more than sufficient to create excellent quality outputs within Pix4D Mapper. Once the software finishes processing, it displays a message identifying how many of these annotations have been created. In this case, 124 images have been annotated. Now let's take a look at this in Pix4D Mapper. Here we have the project. Step 1 has been completed. And let's select a sample image 185 and take a closer look at that. Now Now, if we mark this or select this for annotation, the software will begin the preparation process to start annotation on this image. And this will take anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute. I'll fast forward through that and let you know how long it actually took when it's completed. Well, that took about a minute and 15 seconds on this computer, which is certainly not a fast computer. I would expect maybe half that time on a more capable machine. But you can see that the annotations have been displayed, and each of the vehicles in this image have been identified and annotated out so that they will not be processed in steps 2 or steps 3. And that has in fact been done on all of the images in this project that included vehicles. So finally, let's take a look at a comparison of the orthomosaics that were created using Carwash and without using Carwash. You can see in the version without using Carwash that we have identifiable vehicles, and various smudges, blurs and other artifacts, color distortions and so on. But if I slide down to compare with the version that was processed using Carwash, that the roadway is perfectly clear. So that in a nutshell is what we've done, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.